As I was socializing a bit, some people asked, are you going to talk about the good things or the bad things? And I will talk about both. But I wanted to start because today at breakfast, when I mentioned I would be talking about AI, someone mentioned, oh, I saw a video, an AI-generated video of Maria Montessori. And I thought, oh, I don't have that in the presentation. So in about 60 seconds, I put Maria Montessori on Google, put it in a video generator, and got this out. I didn't get her to speak yet, but if I had maybe another 20 minutes, I would. This is more than anything to show you how fast things are developing. Maybe if we had talked last year or 2 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to do this so fast. I would have needed special software in my computer, but I did this completely online. So yeah, as Lynn mentioned, I study cultural materials, so social media posts, museum collections and archives, advertisements, through the use of AI tools. But just as importantly, I look at how these tools shape the world. So what they highlight, what they obscure, and the values that are built into them. So I will focus today on a few topics. So I thought I would start with a general introduction into the datafied world that we're living in. Then I will give you a primer on AI about the essential and basic technical and technological concepts that are there. Then I will talk about the opportunities, the good, the perils, the bad, and then I will talk about how we are currently negotiating a lot of values as a society through the conversation on AI. So I will revisit the concept of AI literacy with what we have learned throughout this talk. So starting on this idea of the datafied world, I wanted to note that the keynote will not be only about AI in education, even though I know many of you here are educators. Instead, I want to offer a broader technological overview and a moment to pause and reflect on the world that we're living in, the tools that we're creating, and the values that we're negotiating along the way. Specifically, I will frame this talk through the idea of AI literacy. This is a relatively recent term. Why do we need to be AI literate? Well, because the next generation is growing up already in a world completely shaped by AI. To navigate this world thoughtfully and ethically, we all need to become AI literate as well. And AI literacy involves not just or only understanding the mechanics of AI, but more how they make decisions, what kinds of data they use, how they can be biased, and how they impact our lives. So some examples of technical literacy skills would be prompt design. Do you know how to write a prompt to something like ChatGPT to get what you are expecting out? But other skills are like fact checking. Can you verify the veracity of content? Can you tell whether it's generated by AI or not? This is probably something that you're asking yourselves as you go through your social media almost every day. Another part of AI literacy that I will touch upon is this idea of the ability to question AI outputs, not just about the veracity, but understanding the broader ethical implications. So let's start by talking about the case study that I might reference throughout the talk. This is one of my research aspects. It's the case of family vloggers. Has anyone ever seen a family vlog on their social media? Okay, no. So some people have and some people haven't. This idea of a family vlog is generally parents who video themselves doing things with their children, and then they post that online. Okay, so now, how many people?
Ask us again.
Yeah. So through these family vlogs, a lot of new child influencers have emerged. And these children are people whose lives unfold on camera. And their lives are monetized and algorithmically promoted. So the systems that shape their visibility and invisibility offer a powerful example of why AI literacy matters. So I'll return to this case study while I talk about different parts of it. Oh, I was already here. So that was the slide that I was meant to be in. Okay. So AI, as I was saying, is no longer a futuristic concept. It's already part of our everyday lives. It decides what we see online. It powers facial recognition in airports and supermarkets and classrooms. It shapes decisions in hospitals and healthcare systems. In short, AI shapes the world around us. And this means that engaging with AI is no longer optional, and especially for children. So children are part of the AI systems before they realize it, before they're conscious of them. So for children, it's part of growing up. And it's not only about what they consume or they watch, but it's also about the content that is created about them. So their digital presence is shaped by systems that they have no control over. Critically, algorithms don't protect people or children. They promote what performs best. And in the case of child influencers, for example, visibility is driven by engagement and not well-being. So generally in social media, children's lives become content. And we need to understand, okay, how exactly does AI engage with this data? So I will talk about some basic concepts about AI. So AI stands for artificial intelligence. It's an umbrella term for different kinds of systems that simulate certain abilities that humans can do, like recognizing images, predicting outcomes, or generating text. Behind the scenes, it's all math. It's basically a really big mathematical equation. So the systems are designed to spot patterns in data and make guesses based on those patterns. Most of the AI that we interact with today, let's say Netflix recommendations or Siri, they run on something called machine learning. And this means that the system is learning from examples. So instead of following very specific rules based on logic, it just learns from example data. An important structure behind this is what is called a neural network, and these are inspired by how the human brain works. And basically, there's layers of algorithms that process information and get better over time. So a lot of the AI that is being discussed today is what is called deep learning, and that means that there's many layers of these networks. There's different types of learning. And as I was making this presentation, I started thinking, wow, there's so many terms that computer scientists like me borrow from other contexts, like the educational context, right? So in the context of computer science, learning can take three types mostly for machine learning. The first one is supervised. That means that you are telling the system what the expected outcome is. So you show a picture, and then you ask, is this a cat or a dog? The system makes a prediction, and then you tell it, you were wrong or you were right. So that is how most of the AI systems that we tend to interact with were trained, and they were at the core of the AI explosion. Then we have unsupervised learning, which means that there's no labels, what we call no targets. This system just looks for patterns on its own. So this could be, for example, grouping shoppers by their behavior, just creates groups of people. And then finally, we have reinforcement learning, which is about trial and error. It's like teaching a robot to move through a maze. You might have seen those videos of robots learning to walk. That is mostly reinforcement learning, where you give it rewards when it gets something right, or punishments if it gets something wrong. Very connected to the last talk. And then finally, the other core part of this primer that I wanted to share with you is that there's different tasks that one can give to AI. And it has a lot to do with the kind of input or output that you want. So natural language processing is what powers, or originally powered things like Google Translate. So it's this machine's ability to process text. Computer vision deals with images and then videos. And it can, for example, recognize faces or read signs. And then generative AI is now this monstrous big field that kind of takes things from all of these different types of learning and types of tasks and takes things a bit further by creating new content. When I say new, I don't mean really new. I mean something that it has learned was in its previous training data. Okay. So let's talk about what this kind of technology can bring to us. What kind of opportunities are there? Well, AI has an immense potential to benefit society in many, many ways. So some of you probably already know things like Google Translate, maybe the transcription software Otter AI. These kinds of things can take down language barriers, so they can help people communicate and access information. So maybe next time a speaker who's speaking in English, you could have automatic transcription into all kinds of different languages. And I also want to talk about some examples that maybe you haven't seen. So the first one is about accessibility. AI is making a huge impact on helping people with disabilities. For example, Microsoft's Seeing AI app helps visually impaired individuals by describing the world around them and interpreting gestures, even reading text. So I wanted to play, okay, it works.
My take on life is that life is definitely there for the taking. What you put in is what you'll get out. Two things important to me in life are family and music. They both play a huge part in my life. Technology allows me to be my own one-man band. I try to be as independent as I can, and the way that I do that mostly is with low-tech, which is a white cane, and high-tech, which is a phone.
Seeing AI.
Seeing AI is one of the biggest deals in technology, I think, at the moment for visually impaired users. It's an app that you can read almost anything, anywhere with it.
Kilburn High Road. Fashion. Workspace. Mayonnaise.
It has a multitude of functions, and they all work together to produce something that you can use whenever you need it.
Ham and cheese on it.
It might even be considered to be a Swiss Army knife of apps. Of all the parts of Seeing AI, I really do think short text is the biggest of the game changers.
Northwest 6.
Because I've never seen anything like that in any other app before. And I like being in the back of cabs or in buses and pointing it out the window and seeing what I pass on the way to places.
Mobile phone NC 4000.
Okay. I just wanted to give you a taste of the kinds of tasks that AI can help with and the kind of also lived experiences that it can help. So this is a great example. We have another one. This would be conservation.
My take on life is that...
No. Can we play only the second one? Yeah, thanks.
Most of the people get a little bit surprised when we talk about the work that we do combining artificial intelligence and wildlife conservation. I believe that technology will be crucial to stop the massive extinction that we are currently facing, to sustain our world as we know it. Hello, my name is Victor and I am the founder of Wildlife.ai. Wildlife.ai started as a thought that I came across when I was doing my PhD at Victoria University in Wellington, where I was working with camera traps.
Basically, the use that they find is to collect a lot of images of wildlife, and then you can train AI to annotate these images with different species, different, perhaps, behaviors of animals. So it really helps in understanding patterns of the migration of animals and how they're being impacted by climate change. So they can be really useful for things like wildlife conservation, and it showcases the kind of big data analysis power of AI. I also wanted to show you some examples from education. Let's see.
My take.
Okay, there we go. So the first one is about personalized support. One second. Yep. So one of the most exciting possibilities in AI is how it can provide individualized experiences, and especially learning experiences. So there's a system by Khan Academy called Khanmigo. It's a chatbot that can adapt to students' specific learning styles and pace, and it can offer tailored tutoring and feedback. So we can see a quick video about that. Oh, sorry.
Khanmigo, an AI-powered guide designed to help all students learn. When subjects are giving them trouble, Khanmigo can help. Khanmigo is fun and can transform learning into an adventure. Khanmigo is not just for students. Teachers can use it too by toggling from student mode to teacher mode. Then, Khanmigo transforms into the teaching assistant you've always wanted. Select the activity section to begin. It's going to show you all of the wonderful things that Khanmigo can do. You can have a chat with Khanmigo. Khanmigo can give you a class snapshot of how your students are doing. It can summarize your students' chat history so you can see what they've been up to. Feeling iffy about an upcoming standard that you're about to cover? Use Khanmigo to refresh your knowledge, and then use it again to come up with a creative lesson hook that gets your students excited about your content, and then use it again to write unique, thought-provoking exit ticket questions. Khanmigo can create a humanities lesson plan and help you collaborate with your students to...
Okay, so this is one of the types of technologies, and now there's a lot of companies that are going into this kind of field of using AI for personalized education. There's also other types of AI uses in education that are also about personalization, but more about creativity. So I wanted to quickly share the last example.
You can do what you need to do. So let's start off. We're going to begin my story. I'm going to click on that button over there, and we're going to give it a prompt for a storybook that we wanted to create. So I'm going to type in. So I'm going to write a story about a teacher called Mr. Long who's trying to find out what his superpowers are. The more descriptive you can be in your prompt, the better your story is going to be. You've got 3,000 characters, so you can really be quite descriptive with what you wanted to do. And you can choose between a long story, a medium, or a short. But this is a short Mr. Long story because it's about Mr. Long. And you can pick your language. There are some languages available. We don't have Afrikaans or Xhosa here, but we do have a wide range if you are looking for example, a French story or so on. I'm going to stick with English, and it's going to cost me $1 to create the story. Now, I started with $5. I've already done one story, so I'm going to do my second story now. Let's submit. And then you can choose the type of artwork that you want or the image styles that you would like. So if you want anime or watercolor and so on, I'm going to try the anime option and click submit. And it's busy generating my story. Now, as you can see, it's used up one of my dollars for the credits, but if I scroll down, you can see your story. And so here it is, and you can see the different pages. You can edit the text if you want to. It does allow you to edit it, and you can change the pictures. Now, if I want to refresh for a new picture.
Okay. So, interesting, right? We look at how quickly, kind of like what I did with the Maria Montessori image, one can just generate a children's book, a story. And we can think of how this can also be used by specific children. We can ask the children to create stories and to learn how to interact with generative AI to express their creativity. However, as many of you are expecting, there's some darker sides to this. So even with this last example, if we think about what data is this trained on? How does the AI know how to generate stories? we might start to think, okay, there must be a lot of children's stories who were put into the training data of this AI. Were those authors paid for that? Probably not. So that is already one thing that we have in mind. While AI holds significant promise, the risks impact not only technology itself, but the people that it's meant to serve, particularly children and other vulnerable groups. So bias, especially in computer vision, is a big part of my research. So for example, for my PhD in computer science, I was looking at how we are teaching AI systems what freedom looks like, what comfort looks like, what terrorism looks like. What do these abstract values, how do they get materialized into AI systems? What I learned, and what is now known generally, is that AI systems can perpetuate and amplify bias that exists already in the data in the world. So for example, facial recognition technology has been shown to misidentify darker-skinned women at much higher rates than, let's say, lighter-skinned men. This is highlighted by a really important project called Gender Shades by Joy Bulamini at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. We will hear her talk for 1 second about this.
Hi, I'm Joy, and I research how computers detect, recognize, and classify people's faces. In my TED featured talk, I spoke about my experience with the coded gaze, my term for algorithmic bias. The system I was using worked well on my lighter-skinned friend's face, but when it came to detecting my face, it didn't do so well, until I put on a white mask. After my talk was posted, I tested my speaker image profile across different facial analysis demos. 2 of the demos didn't detect my face. The other 2, well, they misgendered me.
Okay. So as we can see in the title also of the MIT News, this was done on commercial artificial intelligence systems. This is not on research versions that are in universities. These were deployed in the world. So this means that not only are there biases and discrimination in these systems, but the downstream effects of using these systems for policing, for healthcare, for targeting any kind of person and making a decision about them really can impact people's lives. Another part of my research is about online toxicity. So especially, I'm interested in how AI-driven content algorithms, so the algorithms that recommend content to you, can be designed to maximize engagement, but it's often at the expense of mental health and societal harmony and peace. So who here has seen this Netflix show? Okay. So this show became the number 1 hit on Netflix, I think immediately after it was released, and amassed an incredible amount of views. And it probably is because it struck a chord with a lot of people. We're recognizing that there's something about the digital environment that children and young people are exposed to that can be very harmful. What's concerning is that algorithms prioritize engagement metrics, and these tend to amplify outrage and sensationalism. So they can give rise to harmful narratives and really amplify hate speech, conspiracy theories, and even extremist ideologies. So platforms like YouTube have been criticized for unknowingly or unintentionally guiding young and impressionable users towards radicalizing content. So it's not just a theoretical or abstract risk, it has real-world consequences for young and especially adolescents' development. So the Netflix show begs the question, what effect does this kind of dehumanizing content and early exposure to it have on young people's lives and perspectives of the world. And a terrible example is the tragic case in which especially teenagers have taken their own lives because they have developed relationships with generative AI chatbots, and this has happened across the world, because of emotional distress when the AI unexpectedly changed tone or became overly intense. So it's not that these platforms are inherently dangerous, but that we're still understanding how these interactions, A, are caused by technical choices, and B, can affect people. So I want to be clear, I'm not trying to sound as an alarmist, but we do need to talk about the emotional risks that come with certain uses of AI. Okay. And then I wanted to talk a bit more about children, and going back to the case study. So child content on YouTube can also have a lot of peril. Because they are algorithmically mediated, it just tends to amplify whatever gets the most engagement. It doesn't have an inherent moral compass. Who here has heard of ILLC Gate? Only one person. Wow. Well, this was a big thing, especially with children. Not mainstream, yeah. So around 2016, the YouTube algorithm started recommending videos featuring popular children's characters like Elsa from Frozen and Spider-Man. But the videos were really bizarre, violent, and inappropriate. You can see certain images. Many were made using cheap animation or generative AI, and while they appeared child-friendly at first glance, they included incredibly disturbing content. Abductions, fetishes, injections, all kinds of things. So they were adult content that was actually being amplified as if it was child content. So the videos gained millions of views because they were really good at exploiting YouTube's engagement metrics: clicks, autoplay, and watch time. So this meant that there were millions of children watching these. And unless parents were really looking over the screen, it kind of looked like a child-friendly content. The other part of this is what I was mentioning before, which is when children are the content themselves. So because what is important in these kinds of algorithms is how long a video is watched or how many comments it gets, the system doesn't understand context. It doesn't recognize that it's amplifying the life of a 5-year-old. But content that evokes a strong emotional response, like a child laughing or grieving, can generate a lot of clicks. And the result is that deeply intimate and vulnerable moments, such as the death of a pet, are pushed to wider audiences. This is what happened in the example that you can see in the bottom. A well-known mommy vlogger accidentally uploaded footage that she didn't mean to, in which she was coaching her visibly distraught, crying child to cry harder and to pose a certain way, so that she could use that image as a thumbnail. This was meant to increase engagement for the video, and the behind-the-scenes moment was only seen because she forgot to edit it out. So this particular mother absolutely deserves criticism, and she did. However, our response shouldn't just stop at individual blame. We need to ask what kind of system encourages this behavior in the first place. If this content is the family's main source of income, then it makes sense that she's focused on the thumbnails, right? There's something behind that is pushing people in this way. So this points to a deeper issue, the monetization of children, but of people in general, their emotions, trauma, joy, and generally an exploitation of anxiety, hatred, and fear. In my opinion, this is a reflection of a broader logic of platform capitalism and neocolonial extractivist logics that point us towards progress and engagement being the main currency. So nothing is off limits. even children, their right to life and dignity and education and physical integrity, regardless of where they were born, their religion, they are still at stake for the progress or even safety. So the question becomes, how do we regulate these uses of AI, and how do we protect people from this kind of structural AI-mediated also exploitation? So I'm currently collaborating with a journalist from the Netherlands who's trying to collect data about family vlogs and child influencers to advocate for new legislation, to get the government to pass new legislation that can protect child influencers, which actually has led to other ethical questions, because she has asked me to go through very, 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 very big sets of data about these children and run facial recognition on them to say, this child has been exposed this much, this child has been exposed that much. And what are the ethics of training an algorithm on a specific child? What if the algorithm that I train ends up in the hands of a malevolent actor? So this brings me to a larger question. Are we also, as educators, as researchers, inadvertently contributing to the normalization of surveillance of children, even as we try to protect them? So let's talk about what kinds of values we are negotiating. There's a paradox in which we are living right now, which is that AI has the potential to protect in really massive scale, but it also has the potential to harm. And it can reveal vulnerabilities, or it can exploit them. And it can be doing both at the same time. So I'm hoping that by now it's clear that AI is becoming the lens or the topic through which a lot of bigger societal values are being discussed. And especially, I think in education, we have these kinds of examples. So one growing trend is the use of facial and behavior tracking to personalize education. So systems are introduced to monitor attention levels, track participation, and even predict emotions, all in real time. So for example, these little headbands can tell when a child is focused or distracted. So this also includes facial recognition. The point is that these are not really neutral tools, right? We saw Joy Buolamwini talking about the biases within computer vision. Do these systems work as well on children of color than on white children? These are the kinds of questions that we need to be asking ourselves. Another current trend is the use of automatic grading. So AI systems are generally marketed as objective, but they can often be rewarding formulaic writing, especially for university-level students. And they can be obscuring decision-making and making it harder to challenge a grade, for example. And it should make us think about what is actually getting rewarded. Is it encouraging expression and creativity, or is it reinforcing a narrow view of what counts as good writing? In both cases, AI is reshaping education, not just how we teach, but what values we prioritize. So we have to ask ourselves, what kind of education are we designing when we hand over choices to machines or automated systems? By now, I hope it's clear that AI isn't simply good or bad, and it's not neutral either. What matters is how it's deployed and the values that we unknowingly or knowingly embed into it. So I think that AI is forcing us to confront key social questions, some of the most pressing questions that are being part of conversation right now. So for example, what does accountability mean when machines make decisions? Another one would be, who gets to be watched in the name of safety and why? Another one would be, who owns the data that we input into systems? Do you own your data, even if you post it publicly? What if you post it privately? What if you're just talking to ChatGPT? The point is that these aren't just technical issues. They also are deeply social, political, and ethical because they're related and entangled to labor and profit. So I also tend to think a lot about labor and how labor underpins these systems, at what cost and who benefits from them. So by now I want to go back to where we started, because we have now looked at how AI can shape digital and educational environments, its promises and its perils. But if we return to the core of AI literacy, what does it mean to be literate? Well, this is what I tend to champion, not just for children, but for everyone. So first is understanding that intentions are not the same as outcomes. And maybe you will see some of these being related to what you educate, how you educate your own the children in your lives. So many AI systems are built with really good intentions, but the same systems can be repurposed for bad things. So good intentions don't guarantee good results. Secondly, the AI should never fully replace human judgment, because systems can help us identify patterns or assist with decision-making, but they must be always paired with human review, because that can ensure that there's more accountability and that there are values that the human can compare to what the outputs are being. Third, we need to resist the hype and reflect on whose values are embedded in the technologies. So literacy means asking deeper questions, like what kind of world is this technology shaping? Who is left out? Fourth, we should be having a growing conversation in AI ethics about accountability, how to hold developers, researchers like me, companies, governments, institutions responsible for the systems that they create and or deploy. So, for example, there was a case recently where in the US, an AI system was consistently canceling the applications of a lot of people who were 55 or older. They were just not considered in the job application process. So this is one of the many cases in which we need to see how human oversight and accountability are actually connected. And then finally, AI must be inclusive, because too often marginalized communities are excluded from the creation of the systems, but they're also the most impacted by them. So expanding AI literacy means making sure that diverse voices are part of the conversation. I'm almost done, but there's one crucial element that I haven't yet mentioned, and I have a feeling that many of you as Montessori educators may be thinking about. What do you think it might be? It's something deeply embedded in the Montessori philosophy, as far as I understand. It starts with M. Movement, emotion, mind, M-A. It's materiality, tangibility and materiality. So I imagine many of you agree that materiality matters in how we learn and what we learn. So also AI isn't just abstract. It's built on physical resources like rare earth minerals like cobalt and lithium, vast amount of water that generally comes from the global south, and low-paid labor like content moderators that are also overwhelmingly in the global south. And these tangible resources have significant social and environmental impacts. At the same time, one thing that I'm realizing that the younger generations don't grasp as well is that digital actions also have real-world consequences. So behaviors like bullying or cybercrime or plagiarism may seem distant online, but in the real world, perhaps the same people wouldn't do those actions. So by making the digital world tangible, we can help people and students understand the physical, social, and ethical implications of their actions online. So how can we teach about digital materiality? From what I understand, Montessori, for example, teaches math through more tangible hands-on materials like wooden blocks. So AI education can similarly emphasize the physical foundations behind the technology. An example of this work is the work by an artist called Julia Jensen. That's what you see in the bottom, where she created this project called Dear Data, How Do You See Me? And she requested data from Meta, the company that owns Facebook and Instagram, to see what kinds of data points they had about her, what kind of vision they had about her. And she transformed 3,500 points into balls, and those show her music preferences, events she attended, pictures that she liked, and made an interactive installation. And she asked people to touch them, to play with them, to see how many of these balls they would feel are enough to say that they know her and what she wants. So this project is a wonderful example of AI literacy in action, and it builds on the same principles that underpin Montessori education. So this leads me to my closing thoughts, which is that I'm in a room full of Montessori educators and thinkers, and I'm discussing literacy, so I want to pose this question to you. How can AI literacy be taught in ways that are ethical, empowering, and tangible, and rooted in care? So while I'm not an expert, by looking online, I saw that these were kind of 4 essential points in Montessori education: independence, observation, prepared environment, and respect. So I started thinking, how can these map into the types of concepts that I discussed today with you? Well, independence also should include digital agency. So children should be empowered not only to use technology, but to critically engage with it and to make informed choices that align with their own values. Observation would also become connected to digital awareness. So teaching children to notice not just how technology works, but how it's influencing their behavior, their values, and how it impacts their privacy. Critically prepared environments have to extend to digital ones. So just as Montessori classrooms are designed to nurture curiosity and growth, we must create or regulate digital spaces to encourage creativity, exploration, and safety, and not hatred and radicalization. And finally, respect for the child becomes respecting their data as well. So the principle is fundamental in ensuring that we can protect children and people's privacy and resist technologies that exploit or manipulate their attention. So I'll stop here, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. My hope is to challenge you to think critically about these systems and to advocate for approaches that align with the values that we want to see in the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and for laying it out so clearly for us and giving us some really interesting questions to have to grapple with. Would anyone like to ask Delfina a question now? We've got time for a few questions, so we will definitely take one. I've got two questions at the moment, so we'll have Julien and then Anuradha.
Thank you. That was so deeply interesting. I have a question which doesn't mean to be too anxious, but isn't it a bit too late already? We're talking about the moment when artificial intelligence would be conscious of itself, which is supposed to be scheduled for next year. We're talking about I don't remember the name, but the test where people cannot differentiate between human and artificial intelligence. This has been succeeded by AI by several times by the beginning of this year. So where are we now?
Thank you for the question. I understand the anxiety. Yes, I can see how we might be too late on some things, but at the same time, this is the moment to regulate, to talk to the people who represent us, who pass legislation, who determine what is legal and what is not. That is the only way that really we can have a say in how things get deployed and which way things are going. And this is actually another research direction that I look at is the anthropomorphization of language to use AI, language to describe AI, and especially evolutionary rhetoric. So this idea that AI is the next evolution of humans. It tends to be partly grounded on real technical developments, but also used as a smokescreen for accountability. So the moment that we as a society decide to say, oh, well, AI has consciousness, and we agree to accept that without really questioning how that is being defined, then we're also losing a lot of agency. So I would say that it's not too late to have these conversations, to talk about these topics, and to also inform ourselves about how we can be best, let's say, tangibly involved in the development and regulation of AI.
Great answer.
It was a great presentation. Amazing. For beginners, it's really, really good. My friends who work in AI are worried that, they themselves now don't understand how it actually works. But still, everybody is quite confident that the human hand will always be there. And as you said, it might be a subterfuge, the whole moral question. What I wanted to observe here was that we have been used to, when we talk of protection for children or safe spaces for children, we have been used to thinking of cyberspace as an alternative for physical space. And lots of things which happen in physical space can happen in cyberspace. And we've been using nearly the same tools, except that they don't have a physical aspect to it. But AI has now created spaces which are very amorphous. So therefore, the safety part there needs much more work. And the whole making a whole perimeter of safety needs much more work than what it used to maybe 1 year ago in a cyberspace for child protection. The question I wanted to ask you, different from this was just my comment on his comment, but the question I wanted to ask you was, are we aware of the fact that whenever anything is being done with AI, it's a very hot computer which is doing it. And as the Earth is already having fever, she's not well, we are angering it even more, using up much more energy. And as we go into more and more AI, we create more and more heat and climate crisis. So there's a whole movement of young people of your generation and after you who are working at cooling the Earth. So can there be an aspect of using AI more mindfully, more responsibly, to keep the Earth from heating up more through these kind of operations?
Thank you very much for the question. Yes. I didn't get to speak a lot about this, but the slide about materiality, that was a key part of it. That we need to learn, all of us, including me, who I use AI in my research, in my daily life, what is the real cost of executing a prompt, for example? Let's say the last image I showed, I did it with generative AI. I asked, what does a Montessori child that is AI literate look like? And it gave me that image. I think that image probably cost about 1 bottle of water. So I think it's important to talk about these material costs, and that's where I see this idea of tangibility being really powerful, that if you had to actually give a bottle of water every time, we would be much more mindful in how much we use AI, what we use it for, and how much we depend on it. And especially because the material reality of AI and when it connects to climate change, there's some systemic structures there that are being repurposed, and that the costs and the benefits are not really aligned. So I do believe that the materiality in connection to the earth is really important. And yeah, as a background, how AI works is that you have these computers that are working so hard that they become really hot. So they generally are in these pools of water, and the water is what cools them down. And that is why water is such an important resource right now, and especially in Mexico. There's a lot of problems going on with big tech companies getting certain contracts to use water that should be for towns and for the public. So it's all kind of entrenched, all of these different aspects.
Would you join with me just once again in thanking Delfina so much for the presentation?
Thank you very much.